You may have heard of PMEA's newest all-state ensemble, the Contemporary A Cappella Ensemble. Well, today we are talking with the man known as the father of the Contemporary A Cappella Ensemble on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Despotakis, and welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. So today we're talking contemporary a cappella. So you may have heard at this year's PMEA All-State Festival, we had our very first contemporary a cappella ensemble. So today we actually wanted to take a little bit more of a deep dive into that. So we have a special guest with us to talk about that. His name is Deke Sharon. I'll bring him in now. Hi, Deke.
Howdy.
Let me just give a quick rundown of some things that are very notable about you. So you've written a lot of books in the contemporary a cappella world. You have produced albums for Straight No Chaser. You have vocally produced the sing off on NBC. You have also been involved in the Pitch Perfect movies in doing vocal production there. And many have called you the father of contemporary a cappella. So what better source to go to talk about contemporary a cappella? Thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure. I was always told you want to underpromise and overdeliver. Right now, I think we've got that swapped. So I look forward over the course of this conversation to disappointing every single listener.
Well, I guarantee that will not happen. I'm usually the one that does that. So that's my role, not yours.
I don't want to step on your shoes. Good.
Appreciate that. So let's baseline, right? Like, what in the world is contemporary a cappella? I think we know what contemporary is, and I think we know what a cappella is, but maybe people don't know what that actually means together. What is that?
What those two pieces are together. Okay, so in a nutshell, for those of you who are listening to this, you're already educated musicians, you're already educated vocal harmony musicians and choral educators and whatnot. So I'll cut to the chase. The sound of a cappella changed in different styles all the way through time. And we've got Gregorian chant, we've got work songs and field hollers, we've got sea shanties, we've got madrigals, sacred and secular, right? And we've got barbershop and doo-wop and vocal jazz, close harmony singing, all these different styles, and Bulgarian women's choir. And I mean, blah, 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 blah. The sound of contemporary a cappella was really born in the very late 80s, early 90s, and was a way to reconcile the incredible development and increasing influence of rhythm and a wide range of timbral instruments on popular music. So if you think about that, a cappella was on the airwaves that people listened to during the 80s. Don't Worry, Be Happy, and Boys to Men, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, for the longest time. A lot of this is very kind of finger snappy. It's kind of like post doo-wop. It has a lot of ooh and a lot of ah and a lot of bum, bum, bum. And it's very vocal and very kind of pure in its form. And this was all well and good for singing those Crosby, Stills, and Nash tunes that you loved, and the songs that already were very vocal. But when I was in college, I wanted to do Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Duran Duran and Peter Gabriel and all the music that was blasting out of everyone's college dorm room. And you couldn't shooby-doo-wop your way through it. So I started experimenting with using your voice as an instrument and taking a 4-part men's ensemble as male collegiate a cappella groups were structured, starting back with the Whiffenpoofs, and turning it into a 12-part ensemble with a lot of different things. And I think the most notable element of this really is vocal percussion. So when you hear a contemporary a cappella ensemble, be it in the Pitch Perfect movies, be it a group like Pentatonix, you often hear one on a part, you hear lots of layers of sound, and an overall wall of sound that sounds much more like what you get from a current pop record. And the beauty of this now is that with this new style, this new technique, this new way of making a cappella, which of course is the oldest music, people are now able to sing anything and everything. They can sing the latest Taylor Swift hits, and your own group is able to custom tailor it just to your own soloist, the right key and the right form and whatnot. So it is the modern wave of people being able to sing any music, but particularly current and recent popular music with nothing but their voices.
Yeah, so I'm going to get into kind of like what a teacher would do
Yep.
to maybe
Great.
start these ensembles, but let's hold off on that for just a second. So I'm curious then for kind of your journey of saying, all right, yeah, like I want to do this, and I kind of want to modernize what we knew as a cappella, and what was that process like for you? And this is probably too broad of a question. Like, what was that process like for you to kind of scale it up to where you've been able to do it in such big things like on network television, in feature films? What did that take?
Well, when I started all this in college, I literally just wanted to do these songs. I just wanted to make that work. And then when I graduated, I told everybody, I'm going to make a career of this new kind of a cappella. And everyone laughed at me. I mean, my high school choral director, bless his heart, lovely man, he told everybody it's like Deeks trying to make a career out of professional tiddlywinks. I mean, like it was a punchline left, right, and center. But I started the first a cappella group with a designated vocal percussionist. We were called the House Jacks. I started the competition that's in the Pitch Perfect movies. It's a real competition. Back then, it was the NCCA, the National Championship of College A Cappella, kind of a play on the NCAA. I wanted there to be a March Madness of this new kind of a cappella. Started publishing companies, started writing, started the Contemporary A Cappella Society of America, a nonprofit, events, all of it. And it just slowly built so that maybe 220 college a cappella groups when I graduated in 1991, and now we have well over 3,000. So the whole idea of scaling it up was, first of all, just let people know that it exists, and then publishing the music and getting it out there, getting festivals and educational materials out there, and teaching people through books. But then once it started to become well enough known and kind of bubbling under, that's when television and movies got involved. And the challenge was actually figuring out how to make this thing that's so wonderful in the room work on the small and the large screen. Because all those like warm, tingly feelings you have when you're hearing a group singing, during the holidays, you hear an a cappella carol and you just get all warm and fuzzy inside. There's something that happens in the room, and it's very difficult to capture on the screen. Camera angles and quick cuts and close-ups and glances, and you have to tell the story of the song and the story of the connection of all the members within the group, as well as finding the right way to capture everyone's voices on the sing-off. I insisted on individual microphones for each person. Handheld mics were best. The headset mics, anybody who used those because they wanted more choreo, they went home that week. I mean, it was brutal until everybody was like, no, give me the handheld. That's what we want. And for the Pitch Perfect films, 9 of the 10 actresses, bless them, I mean, they could all sing, but not only had they never sung a cappella or contemporary a cappella, they hadn't even sung in choir. So it was a really difficult and challenging a cappella boot camp period with, unfortunately, lots of tears. I was as nice as I could be, but it was difficult building a blend and having them each do their individual parts while they were doing choreography and crafting this. So there were definitely growing pains, but the beautiful thing is it didn't end up on the screen. I thought Pitch Perfect was going direct to DVD. I thought this tiny little budget movie, first time movie director, first time producers, no one had ever made a movie about a cappella. I did not expect it to be the cult hit that it became. And yet I always knew that if people only knew about this kind of music, they would love it, and love it they did. Same with the sing off. And Pentatonics, they were dropped from their label the day after the show. The label just didn't want them, and I went and met with them, and I said, "Guys, this could be the best thing that's ever happened to you. Keep making music, put it up on YouTube, go, 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 go." And now Pentatonics fills arenas. I mean, most rock bands would just kill for their following and the number of albums they've sold and their beloved international reputation. So it's everywhere now, which was very much my desire, and all of that was literally just 20 plus year overnight success, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yeah. I'm really fascinated when you said, like, we hear this ensemble at the holidays, right? And like we know that feeling, right? Like we can pinpoint when we've been somewhere and know that feeling. And you were able to then take that and scale it, yeah, like you said, a 20-year overnight success. Like anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I end up talking about the marching arts and marching band and drum corps in some way in probably every episode. But like what in my head immediately was like that first time I've exposed people to a high level marching band or a world class drum corps, and they are blown away by that moment. And DCI, Drum Corps International, has said over time, how do we make that the masses, right? How do we get that exposure? And they tried years ago. They went the ESPN route, and it cost a lot of money, and it didn't work. Because it was never able to be captured in that way. And so I just think it is amazing what you've been able to do in identifying that, but then also saying, and here's the formula, right? Like, and you must have really really probably had to fight some battles to get people to believe in your formula, I'm guessing.
Oh, honestly, I was like the last person hired for the TV show The Sing Off. And I walked up on the first day to the showrunner and I said, listen, I looked at the schedule and I noticed there aren't any sound check times on here for these groups. So when will that be happening? And he looked at me and said, sound checks? There aren't any sound checks on schedule. Sit down, shut up, and know your place. And at that moment, I realized, okay, this show's going to suck. Like, this whole thing is going to go down like a flaming Titanic, like a combination of of Hindenburg and the Titanic somehow burning underwater. And I realized, like, I just need to be like the dog in Wallace and Gromit and run around and fix things. They want to fire me? Fire me. But this is our one chance to be on network television. If we do this right, it could be absolutely magical. And I got a note a couple weeks later, and it was interesting because it just said, we see what you're doing and we appreciate it. Sony. I wish I still had the note. Just Sony, like no names, nothing like that. Yeah. Anyway, by the end of the first season, they made me a producer and gave me full reign to really like make sure the creative stuff went down the way it needed to, because as you well know, a cappella is people and nothing but people. And when people are the instrument, their countenance, their health, their mood, their interpersonal relationships, and the relationships between the groups, also all these things affected each other. And in fact, something I recognized early on, the first day, as soon as every other producer and every other person from the staff was out of the room and they let me run a rehearsal with all these singers, I said, guys, look around the room. Every other person in this room is your friend and will be your friend for the next 40 years. Eventually, NBC, Sony, everybody would forget about you. So don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't play that game where like, who are you here to beat? Who's the weak one? Like, I'm just here to win. All that garbage they had on reality shows. And it let all the singers let their hair down because all they wanted to do was have fun with each other. And they became best friends. And there were like late nights and hot tubs and relationships and babies and marriages and in that order, actually.
Yeah.
And so you put it all together, and that love that they had for the music, for the people in their group, and for each other came across. And I think that was the magic of making the live thing happen, as well as getting the cameras right and the microphones and the mixing and the balance. And there were technical aspects as well, but a lot of it was really in the vibe. And when people are having that kind of love, and like I worked on the first Straight No Chaser PBS special as well. And a lot of it was just capturing their camaraderie, their kind of like rat packy fraternity, and the love they have for each other and the love they have of singing. And I tell groups when I work with them musically, there's always the meaning of the message in the music. Like that has to be down there, but there's this meta level that's always going on of how much you love singing and love each other and whatever. And that's really what comes across in the Pitch Perfect films. That's the thesis. And that's the message that comes across is like, wow, this kind of singing is so fun. And you can be a really motley Bad News Bears assortment of people, and you can come together and you can create something that is so incredibly wonderful and special and electric. And that's the message of the movie. That's the message of a cappella in general.
So I imagine a lot of people have got hooked on the concept from the movies, from television, from Straight No Chaser, from, the list goes on. And maybe we've hooked some people in Pennsylvania by having our first contemporary a cappella all-state ensemble this year. So there might be teachers out there now as we're coming to the end of the school year and they're thinking about next year or thinking of the future and say, well, I'd love to do this, but where do I start? How do I add this, maybe into what is already part of my existing choral program? Maybe I'm adding it as a standalone at some point, so I guess my question is like, what advice, what resources are out there that you would suggest for teachers considering that?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, the number one question I guess people say, like, I studied classical music, I studied jazz, I studied this world music, I know how to teach these things. I don't know how to teach popular music. Help. And I say, okay, your first language was English, was it? And they're like, yes. I said, like, did you learn the subjunctive? No. I said, right. You were born with this language, surrounded by this language, and you know the syntax, and you know the phrasing, and you know the tone, and you know the meaning of all these words, even before you understood what nouns and verbs were. This is what popular music is to you. Okay. You had to learn classical, you had to learn jazz, you learned these other languages of music that are beautiful and fantastic and wonderful and have stood the test of time. But your base level language, unless you were raised in a family where your mother was and father were in a string quartet and you only listen to like Bartok and Dvorak, like you know this music. You know, when you hear the song Lean on Me, you sing along in the radio in harmony, like you can't help it. And so the first thing to know is to trust your instincts. Okay? That's key. Second thing to know is that now there's so much out there, so many groups, so many materials. You can go on YouTube and watch other performances and get inspired. The fantastic Arrange Me program has allowed so many arrangers of contemporary a cappella, including high school and college students, to upload their arrangements. So if you want a song, the latest hit by, fill in the blank pop star, you can go looking for it online in a simple Google search and they'll start popping up. And then you can look at different versions and different voicings. And this one looks right for us. And then you can modify it yourself as well. So the material's out there. And then if you're wondering, like, well, is it really worth it to do this? I joke with educators all the time. I was like, would you like more gentlemen in your ensembles? Because this is the gateway drug. There are a lot of people who are like, well, I don't really know this, like singing motets and madrigals, and it feels kind of distant to them. And the analogy I like to use is when we started to read, you started reading Hop on Pop or Dr. Seuss, and you made your way up through into like Harry Potter and then maybe Twilight, hopefully not, but and then eventually people make their way up and then get to Shakespeare. Our music education programs often lean heavily on the Shakespeare and don't take people up through these different steps. And singing complex vocal harmonies is a lot easier if you started to do it with songs and styles that you're familiar with. Plus, students love it. When I was in college at Tufts University in the Beelzebubs, we were more popular than the football team. We were like a huge deal. And that is happening now on so many college campuses. The college a cappella groups are like rock stars. And most of the people in these groups, they go into having other kinds of careers. They're not professional musicians. Some of them learned to read music as I was teaching them in rehearsal. And so the idea really is, and the reason that I decided to devote my life to popular music, doing this as opposed to jazz or classical or all these wonderful traditions that I learned in conservatory and sang from the age of 5, is that this is the vernacular. This is the way we reach the most people. And so I highly recommend, even within your chorus, if you just want to add a couple tunes at the end of your program, the way the King Singers do, and have them be pop songs, and you want to sing a little Stevie Wonder or Bruno Mars or whatever, do it. Your students will love it. Your audiences will love it. And then they may even become interested in starting a student group, which a lot of these high school groups and most of the college groups are entirely student run.
I really appreciate your perspective there of like, we're not saying throw out
No,
everything that you've already known and then
no,
do, because that's all valid too. And I just love this idea of, incorporate, like they always say, like a band concert, no matter what it is, should always have a march in it, right? Like, and because you need a little bit of that variety. Well,
sure.
that works in a choral setting as well. And I just love this concept of, is this a way to hook some more people into understanding the value of music, understanding vocal music?
Well, in 100 years, Blackbird by the Beatles and Man in the Mirror, those will be like folk songs. They will
Mhm.
be music that people will say is timeless and powerful and resonant. And so why should we wait 100 years to sing these songs? I mean, it makes no sense to me whatsoever, because honestly, we're going to do them really well right now. And, the Beatles, it's 50 years ago now, right? I mean, how long do we need to wait? And as far as current music, not everything is great. Some of it is puerile, some of it is trite, some of it is boring 4 chord progressions. That's always been the case with classical music as well, with anything.
Yeah.
It's just the stuff that we do is the stuff that we know stood the test of time. So you can listen to an Ed Sheeran tune or a song by Adele and like go like that's actually a great song. Or Bob Dylan, or Chicago. Like, pick the bands you love, pick the music you love, find something that really resonates with you and that you think will land with your students, and then try it. Because you also may find, and when I'm coaching groups all the time, I find this, you use that pop song, you use that idiom to unlock them. So then they find their feet, they find their energy, they find their love of the music, they sing from their heart, their faces are alive. There's a movement within the group and a joy and a connection to the music. And then you say, okay, now let's go back and sing this secular madrigal, right? All the fountains spurting and people dying in each other's arms. That's like an Usher tune, that's like a Drake. It's like really racy music for the time and very like tons of sexual innuendo. Okay, now let's look at these words. What are they saying? What's really going on here? Aha. Now, can you sing this music with that energy and presence you had before, the way that people did 400 years ago when they were singing this and it was their contemporary pop a cappella?
Yeah, really, really good perspective there. I like that. So I imagine teachers might say, like, I love this idea, but my intimidation comes in when, okay, part of this is, as you mentioned earlier, the voice becomes the percussion section, the voice becomes the rhythm section here, and that might be something that some teachers say, I'm a little concerned about that. Are there good resources out there you could recommend?
Gobs. You go on YouTube and you type in, vocal percussion or beatboxing, and you'll go down the rabbit hole. What you need in your ensemble is not everybody to do vocal percussion. You need one person. It's like you see those World War II movies, and there's like one sniper in the squad who goes up in the bell tower, like in Saving Private Ryan, right? You need one. You need one person every year who goes deep and learns that. And usually you'll find somebody who's interested in doing that. And the base level, like getting on board with it or whatever, if they have a good sense of rhythm, it's not particularly difficult. If they can do a kick, snare, and a hi hat, they're off to the races. And then you go from there, and that's really it. Let them find their own way, and little bits of tutorials. And there are people who will teach a lesson or two online as well. But like I said, it's really not super challenging, and the kid who's excited about it will be pretty quickly self-motivated because then there's a lot of kudos and a lot of excitement for them. And then they go on to sing in college and they're immediately in demand in whatever college they go to because they're trained vocal percussionists. It's perfect.
Yeah. All right. So I think you've inspired teachers, students alike here to do this just in the last 20 minutes or so. But you're coming to Pennsylvania in November,
Yes.
and you're going to be participating in a modern band showcase at
Yes.
Peters Township High School outside of Pittsburgh. Talk to us a little bit about what, in general, what this showcase is like. What's this all about for people who might want to come and be part of this?
Okay, so a contemporary a cappella event is much like some of the other events that you've gone to, they've been choral events or whatever, but it's a different vibe. Uh, of course, groups will get an opportunity to sing for other groups and learn from watching other groups. I mean, this is one of the things that's great. Like I said before, a cappella is never better than when it's happening in the room. And when they see their peers like, oh, that was a cool song or whatever. And we create a really supportive bonding atmosphere where we tell them at lunch, like, hang out with, like, meet people from other schools and whatever. So it's not that kind of like one-upmanship and kind of distant, this isn't Mean Girls and like one of those cheerleading movies. This is like, let's get together and learn and from each other and see what works and like, oh, we want to do that song next year. Can we borrow that arrangement or like, where'd you get it? And all of that. And then like, I'll be teaching some classes on a wide range of subjects. So, maybe a little bit of basic vocal percussion and teach students how to sing like instruments or some fundamental arranging tips. And I'm always there as a resource for educators as well. How do I get this group started? I've run into this problem with the administration, or like, where do we start getting performance opportunities and how do we make video work, or what's the best way to record? All of this stuff, all this information is absolutely out there. And the other people who are going to be joining me there are fantastic. Like Ben Spalding, like really world-class educators that have won the high school level of it's the ICHSA. So they come with all of that experience as well, the high school level. So basically, it's a great day. It's a feel-good day, lots of education, lots of great music. and you leave rather than exhausted, you leave with your batteries charged. Like, wow, I'm so excited about what we can do for the rest of the school year and moving forward.
So we'll put out more information on that. I can give you preliminary information. November 2nd, Peters Township High School outside of Pittsburgh. You'll see more information coming from PMEA if you want to be involved in that. And certainly if you're in the western side of the state, it's a little bit easier for you to get there and be part of that. So definitely recommend that. Deke, thanks for being with us today. This has really been a fascinating 20 minutes or so to learn more about this. We really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. And I'm going to leave you with something that may sound a little bit crazy, but my life's work is to spread harmony through harmony and to get more people singing. And the best way to get more people singing is to spread this kind of contemporary a cappella. So if you're an educator and you're listening to this and you want some tips or whatever, you can reach out to me free of charge. I will give you all of the help and advice that I possibly can. Deke@dekesharon.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, not TikTok. I mean, I have my limits, but drop me a line and I will help you start a group, find arrangements, find performing opportunities, get in contact with others, whatever questions you have, I am here for you. And together we will make the world a more harmonious place.
Yeah, fantastic. That will continue your 20-year overnight success and to help make that happen in schools across the country and hopefully in Pennsylvania. Deke, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you all for being with us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, the Grove City College Department of Music. We'll see you next time.